Hi guys, how is everybody? I hope you're all doing well. Slightly early this week because I've had to rejuggle my diary a little bit today. So I hope that's okay. I don't know if any of you will manage to join me live, but if you're watching on replay, give me a hashtag replay. Any questions or anything, feel free to ask away. So I want to start off. I'm going to do a few linked, what would you call these, lives, I suppose. I'm going to do a few linked for the next few weeks, talking about Eastern medicine and how different Eastern medicines work and how they can help chronic illnesses, specifically endometriosis, but different chronic illnesses, chronic pain, how it can help your symptoms of endo and how it can help you get to the root cause of your endo as well. And the same applies, like I say, for other chronic illnesses in the same context as endometriosis. So today's is the first episode. I want to talk about how Eastern medicine works, so the principles behind Eastern medicine, and specifically what that means for endometriosis. It's going to be a really overarching topic this morning, just as a bit of an introduction to the episodes that will come on afterwards. So first things first, when I talk about Eastern medicine, I'm kind of badging a lot of things together because the way that I work and the principles of different alternative, natural, complementary medicines are very similar. They have a lot of things in common, and they all come from Eastern, or most of them come from Eastern cultures. So we're talking Japanese, Chinese, Indian. There's a little bit of Egyptian thrown in there as well. We've also got ancient medicines that I use that are out there as well, which I'll talk about in coming weeks in terms of sort of medicines of the first people, so indigenous populations and their kind of medicinal techniques. So when I'm talking about Eastern medicine, I've kind of done them all a disservice and I've lumped them all in together. That's just my definition. You'll hear different definitions of what it is I do. I mean, already there's Eastern medicine, Eastern medicine, alternative medicine, complementary medicine, the list goes on. But this is kind of my take on it all over my years of training and reading and learning. So the things that they kind of have in common with each other, especially the therapies that I use, we talk about energy, we talk about blockages, and we talk about balance. So what exactly does that mean? So let's break it down. Let's start with energy. Most Eastern medicines believe that our body has channels of energy or pockets of energy within us. So when I talk about the body, I'm not just talking about our physical body, but about our being. So it's that link between our body and our mind and our soul, our spirit, our aura, whatever it is that you want to call it. But that's kind of one of the principles of Eastern medicine, that our being, our body, has these energy pockets. Our energy sits within our body. So for this, for us to be well, for us to have a good state of well-being, for us to be physically well, the energy needs to flow through our body unobstructed. So it needs to be free-flowing. So exactly in the same way that our blood flows through us, Eastern philosophy believes that added to the blood and the water that's making us, there is a chi, a life force. So it's called chi, which is spelled various ways. This is Chinese, kind of Egyptian, anyway, Chinese, Japanese, all of those kind of philosophies. It's kind of called chi, or a variation of chi. So we've got chi, C-H-I, we've got chi, Q-I, and we've got ki, K-I. They all relate to energy, to the energy that's within us. And Indian Ayurvedic medicine, Ayurvedic practitioners have their own word for it as well. But that's basically, in essence, what the fundamental belief of Eastern medicines is that our being has an energetic force to it, and that force has to be healthy and free-flowing through us for us to keep healthy. So what does that mean? So again, different philosophies vary differently. They vary slightly, but the principles are kind of the same. That principle is that physical and emotional traumas create blockages in that energy flow, and the simplest way of looking at this is a muscle ache, a muscle pain, a physical trauma. So I was walking the dog yesterday, and she decided to go and chase another dog, and just pulled my wrist. So I wouldn't say I sprained my wrist, but I kind of overextended my wrist a little bit. So, and I completely forgot about it until yesterday when I was picking up the washing basket and I felt the muscle ache, the muscle twinge a bit. So when I went to press it, felt really sore, and actually the muscle had just tensed up. And that's our body's natural defense. When we hit a pain, when we hit an injury, our body tenses the muscles, and it tenses the muscles around the injury in order to protect the injury, so the injury has time to heal itself. Because this is another fundamental of Eastern medicine. It very much works on the principle that your body, when it's functioning properly, has all the ability, it has all the tools and the skills it needs to help itself, to heal itself. So the body starts, if we have a physical trauma, the body starts to heal. In so doing, it's shielding it, it's tensing up a little bit, and it's sending healing to that area. Now, normally what happens if your body's hydrated, if your body's healthy, if you're not living with anything else, that system will kick in, the body will repair itself, the muscles will relax. That's a simple explanation. When that muscle is tense, that's formed a barrier. So that's formed a bit of a blockage for the flow of energy, for the flow of chi through the body. And that kind of manifests in many different ways. I've done loads of videos on this, so check out my YouTube channel if you want to know a little bit more about that. But yeah, it manifests in different ways. But essentially what's happening is that the energy is getting blocked. When the body naturally heals itself and the muscles go back to its relaxed state and hydrated state, drink lots of water, guys, and when it goes back to its hydrated state, then the energy is flowing freer again. So it's back flowing freely through the body. So what starts to go wrong is when that muscle tension, to use this example, stays. So my wrist, maybe I tweak it again, maybe I hurt it some other way, and so the muscles don't go back to normal because, again, that injury is getting worse. If that muscle tension stays for a long time, if it gets worse, if it stays for a long time, the body will consider that that's an injury. So the muscles around that will start to tense as well. So a really good example of this is your neck. So you could have a bit of a stiff neck. If it doesn't go over a couple of days, that stiff neck starts to spread. You maybe start getting headaches, start getting a sore shoulder. It starts to spread because the muscles are tensing up to protect the other muscles. Not only that, but you start to hold yourself differently, you stand differently, you sit differently, you pick things up differently because you're subconsciously aware of the pain in your shoulder. So muscles are getting used differently. You're kind of putting yourself out of kilter physically, and you'll start to see different pain manifesting because of that. All of that muscle tension is causing a blockage. So in Eastern medicine, that's causing the pain, that's causing any inflammation, that's causing stagnation. Again, check out my other video on stagnation. I might talk a little bit about this, we'll see. So yeah, this is causing stagnation, which is causing pain, inflammation, cysts, bruising, all of the stuff that kind of comes with endometriosis. That's the principle of Eastern medicine, or one of the main principles of Eastern medicine. The other principle is balance. So I talked before about the body, mind, and soul. So in terms of alternative Eastern medicines, we don't just look at the physical aspect. So for example, taking the neck as an example, if you came to me struggling with a bad neck, a lot of people say, oh, I just slept funny. But is that really a thing? I would question whether you actually did sleep funny. What's going to be completely different to how you slept last night, to how you've been sleeping every night for the last 20 years? Now, it could be a new pillow, it could be a new mattress. It's more likely to be something that's stress related, in my experience, or something that, like, you've tweaked a muscle by turning or by doing something. We then need to look at why the muscle weakness is there, but I'm getting sidetracked. So a lot of times when people come to me with bad necks, crick necks, oh, I just turned funny, I just slept funny, more often than not, there's an underlying stress that's causing it. So it could be a stress at work, it could be anything that's causing stress. Our body reacts to stress in very, very strange ways. One of them being, it's not strange, it's perfectly natural, but one of the natural responses, one of the natural stress responses is for our muscles to tense because we're getting ready to fight or to flight. So our muscles get ready, our shoulder muscles tense so that you can punch or stab or whatever it is we used to do. And our leg muscles tense so we get ready for running. So when our muscles tense, ordinarily they will relax after the stressor has gone, our body will go back to normal. If that stress continues for a long time, then that muscle tenses for a long time and that starts to become normal. That starts to become your muscle memory of normal. So you start to get this muscle tension over a long period of time. It might not cause any problems. It might not cause any pain. I mean, I don't know if you've ever been for a massage, and the masseuse will be massaging you and say, oh, you're really tight there. And you're like, oh, I didn't realize. And then she massages it, or he massages it, and it absolutely wrecks because your muscle is so tight. You didn't notice it on a day-to-day basis. It's not causing you any pain. Yet something you did in your sleep that night or the night before has triggered that pain. So it could be that you turned over and just tweaked it. It could be that you've been lying in a position that set it off. But the underlying cause is emotional, so it's stress, and that's more than likely what's going on with most people. So emotional, and that's the best example in terms of how emotional impacts the physical. So emotional traumas, prolonged emotional issues become physical. So in order to keep well, in order to maintain good health, we need to have a good balance between our body and our mind and our spirit. And the spirit, our soul, comes into this as well in terms of general well-being and general depression. In Eastern and alternative medicine, the emotional becomes spiritual as well. So you'll know if you've ever struggled with anxiety or depression, how much that impacts on your ability to enjoy life and how down your spirit gets. So that's a link between the body, the mind, and the soul. Again, a really good example is listening to music. If you put your favourite music on and you feel yourself uplifted, that's a really easy example of how your spirit, your soul, your aura, your mood can be lifted by something, and that has such a profound effect on your emotional state as well. So I've already seen the emotional impacts of physical. So if you alleviate stress, if you alleviate anxiety, then very slowly your body will start to respond as well, because as well as it being negative, it can have a positive effect as well. You'll have heard me talk about breathing techniques in the past. Your body, if you physically put your body into a relaxed state, your mind will not be stressed, because one cannot live in the other. So that doesn't make sense. But if you're emotionally stressed, your body responds with a physical response. If you calm that physical response, your mind will eventually realize that there's nothing to be worried about. So this is why relaxation techniques, things like Reiki, things like meditation, we'll talk about those in the coming weeks, but that's why these work so well, because it's really hitting the core of that link between your body, your mind, and your soul. So in Eastern medicine, the philosophies tend to be very similar again around this, the balance of body, mind, and soul. So you need to keep everything in balance. Now, that's not to say that you're going to be wandering around happy all the time, that you're going to be wandering around relaxed and chilled all the time, because that's not balanced. You need yin and yang, you need positive, negative, you need the balance of all things. So there are times where you're going to be stressed, there are times where you're going to be angry, there are times where you're going to be negative, but the key to when you're balanced, when you have that balance of body, mind, and spirit, body, mind, and soul, that's when your resilience is there. So that's when you can hit a stressful situation in your life and you can bounce back by yourself or with a hand, but your body has that natural resilience there to bring the balance back in line. It's fluctuating. It's like a good relationship. Things fluctuate. Sometimes one's higher than the other, one's sort of down here, but then they naturally will fluctuate. It's the same with physical resilience as well. So the ability, like your immune system responds, is one of the things that is impacted massively by stress as one thing. So many other things impact on your immune system. Emotional stress impacts on your immune system. So if your emotions are balanced, if you are healthy emotionally, your immune system has a better chance of fighting infection. So in the winter, when all the colds are doing the round, if you have, I don't know, a global pandemic or something, if your immune system is stronger, then you have a better chance of not getting ill in the first place and recovering quicker when you do get ill. Because that's not to say you're never going to get ill, because that's not reality, but it stands you in a better stead for recovery. So again, emotional impacting on the physical, and that's impacting on the emotional, because if you do get ill, if you're living with chronic pain, that can be quite depressing and anxiety bringing in itself. So it's kind of a vicious cycle. So Eastern medicine works by addressing the balance of body, mind and soul. So we look at the emotional, we look at the physical, and we look at how you're feeling, not just in terms of emotional, but in terms of that wider, that bigger picture, that deeper spiritual stuff. That's not to say religious, completely different. You can be an Eastern medicine practitioner, you can do yoga, you can do anything. That's spiritual, that's not religious. Clear definition. That's all about your spirit and keeping your spirit vibrant. So Eastern medicine works to address and treat body, mind and soul, and keeping them all in balance to improve your natural resilience. It's based on the body's natural ability to heal itself. So all Eastern medicine is doing is facilitating that healing process. And then we add into it this chi, this life force that we all have in us, we all have flowing through us. And in order to facilitate that healing process, the actual how, so that's kind of the philosophy of the balance. The actual how is that we make sure that our bodies are free of blockages, free of the blockages of the energy, and that is spiritual, emotional, and physical. So that's how Eastern medicine works. That's the concept. So the theory is when you can understand why your body is doing something, so for example, stress headaches, once you can understand why you are getting the stress headaches, it's nothing. It could be dehydration. That's a really big thing, but it's stress. So people are having a physical response to an emotional trigger. As soon as people understand that and start to address the stressor behind it, then they find their headaches disappear. Again, it's not always the case. It can be a physical issue that's causing the headaches. It could be dehydration. There are different things, but just in this example, as soon as you recognise that it's an emotional issue, you start addressing the emotional issue and the physical issue goes away by itself. So that's what Eastern medicine does. We look at everything. So that's why when you come and see somebody like me, we will ask you a lot of questions that you think are completely irrelevant. But that's because we're trying to get a full picture, a holistic picture, to use the proper term, the proper use of the word holistic. We get a holistic approach. We get a holistic look at what's going on with your being, with your entireness. We look at questions to do with your emotional, with your physical and with your spiritual, so that we can get an understanding of where the imbalances are, and we can also start looking at the blockages that are causing your symptoms. So that's how Eastern medicine works. That's how the principles of Eastern medicine can be brought to your endometriosis and to your other chronic conditions and chronic pain. Next week, we're going to start looking at different therapies and how they work and how you can do them yourself, or I will give you tips on what to look for when you're choosing a good therapist as well. If you have any questions, give me a shout. You don't have to put them on here, but if you have any questions, feel free to message me, drop me an email. I offer a free consultation as well if you want to chat through how my programs can help you with your endometriosis. Just drop me a line and I can arrange that. Okay, have a lovely rest of week. Sorry I was a bit early this morning, or this afternoon now. Have a fantastic day, have a lovely rest of the week, have a great weekend, whatever you're up to, and I shall see you next Thursday. Take care, guys.